"Have mercy, please. I can make you a dad if you forgive me," said the desperate Apache woman. The man had built his life around silence. He lived at the edge of a small desert town where the land stretched wide and empty, much like his heart. Every morning he woke before the sun, made strong coffee, and sat on his porch watching the sky change color. He liked the quiet because it did not ask questions. It did not remind him of the past. It did not speak her name. Years ago, he had been a different man. He had laughed easily, trusted quickly, and dreamed without fear. Back then, he believed life would reward honesty and hard work. He believed love was enough. That belief did not survive. The woman had come into his life like sudden rain in dry land. She was Apache, proud and strong, with eyes that held stories older than words. She spoke softly but stood firmly, never lowering her gaze. When they met, he had felt seen in a way he never had before. She understood silence. She understood pain. For a while, they built something real, something that felt safe. But life pressed in from all sides. The world around them did not make things easy. There were whispers, disapproval, and pressures he did not fully understand then. When a serious misunderstanding grew between them, fear took control. Words were said that could not be taken back. Accusations replaced trust. One night, she left without explanation, and he never saw her again. The loss changed him. He waited for months, then years, but no answers came. Over time, hope turned into bitterness. He convinced himself that she had chosen another life, that what they shared had meant less to her than it did to him. To survive, he hardened his heart and locked the past away. Now, years later, he lived alone by choice. He worked with his hands, fixing old machines and helping neighbors when needed, but he kept his distance. People respected him but did not know him. That was how he wanted it. That evening, the wind carried dust across the road as the sun sank low. He was closing the gate when he sensed someone standing behind him. He turned slowly, expecting no one. She stood there. At first, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him. The woman before him looked thinner, older, and tired, but there was no mistaking her. The same dark eyes. The same quiet strength, now weighed down by fear and exhaustion. His heart beat hard, and for a moment he could not breathe. Years of anger rushed up, sharp and burning. He wanted to turn away, to pretend she was not real, but his feet would not move. She took a small step forward, her hands shaking. Her clothes were dusty from travel, and her face showed signs of hardship. When she spoke his name, her voice broke. He felt the sound of it cut deep. No one had spoken his name like that in years. He demanded to know why she was there. His voice was cold, but inside, everything was shaking. He asked where she had been, why she disappeared, why she had never returned. Each question carried years of pain. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not answer right away. She looked down, gathering strength. When she finally spoke, her words came slowly, carefully, as if each one carried weight. She said she had no right to appear like this. She said she understood if he wanted her to leave, but she begged him to listen before judging her. She told him life had not been kind, that she had faced choices no one should have to make. Fear had ruled her actions, and silence had seemed safer than truth. He laughed bitterly. Silence, he said, had destroyed him. Silence had stolen years of his life. She nodded, accepting the blame without defense. That was what unsettled him most. She was not here to argue or excuse herself. She was here because she had nowhere else to go. The wind picked up, and she wrapped her arms around herself. Only then did he notice how weak she looked. The strong woman he remembered now carried a heavy burden. She dropped to her knees without warning, her pride finally breaking. The sight shocked him more than words ever could. She pressed her palms into the dirt and bowed her head. With a trembling voice, she begged for mercy. She said she was not asking for love, only forgiveness. She said she had carried a secret for years, one that had shaped every decision she made. She said she had tried to protect him from it, but time had shown her that hiding the truth had caused more harm. He stepped back, his chest tight. He told her to stand up, that she did not belong on the ground before him. But she remained there, tears falling onto the dry earth. She spoke then, her words coming faster, driven by desperation. She said if he turned her away, she would understand. She said she had lived with regret every day, but she needed him to know the truth now, even if it cost her everything. The sun disappeared behind the hills, and shadows stretched long across the land. He felt trapped between the man he had become and the man he once was. He asked her what truth could possibly matter after all this time. She looked up at him, her eyes full of fear and hope mixed together. She said softly that she could give him something he had believed he would never have. She said she could make him a father. The words hit him like a blow. He shook his head, refusing to accept them. He told her not to play games with his pain, but she swore she was not lying. She said the child was his, born after she left, raised far away, hidden to protect them both. His legs felt weak. He turned away, staring at the darkening horizon. The idea was impossible. He had spent years believing his life would end without family, without legacy. Now she stood there, asking him to rewrite everything. She explained through tears that she had been forced to leave when she learned the truth. Pressure from her community, fear of conflict, and threats she could not fight had pushed her away. She believed disappearing was the only way to keep the child safe. He wanted to scream. He wanted to deny it all, but deep inside something shifted. A small voice whispered that her eyes did not lie. Silence fell between them, heavy and painful. The first stars appeared in the sky. He felt anger, grief, and hope battling inside his chest. Finally, he told her to stand up and come inside, not because he forgave her, not because he believed her fully, but because turning her away now would make him no better than the pain he carried. She rose slowly, relief and fear written across her face. As she followed him toward the house, he knew this was only the beginning. The past he buried had returned, and with it came a truth that would change everything. That night, neither of them slept. Outside, the desert remained quiet, holding secrets just as it always had. Inside the small house, two broken lives stood at the edge of a future neither had planned, unsure whether mercy would destroy them or finally set them free. The house felt smaller with her inside it. He had lived alone for so long that another presence disturbed the air itself. She sat on the edge of a wooden chair near the table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. He poured water into 2 cups, his movements stiff and unsure. Neither of them spoke at first. Words seemed dangerous, like stepping on weak ground. He placed a cup in front of her. She whispered thanks but did not lift her eyes. He noticed how thin her wrists were, how tired her face looked under the weak light. This was not the woman who had once walked beside him with confidence. Life had clearly taken more from her than time. He finally broke the silence. He asked her where she had been all these years. His voice was calm, but his heart was not. He needed answers, even if they hurt. She took a slow breath. She said she had moved often, never staying in one place too long. She worked wherever she could, doing simple jobs to survive. Some places were kind, others were not. She learned to depend only on herself. Every move, every choice was made with fear following close behind. He asked why she never sent a message, never tried to explain. She closed her eyes and tears slipped down her cheeks. She said she wrote letters many times but burned them before sending. She was afraid he would reject her, afraid that her truth would bring trouble into his life. She believed silence was protection. Now she knew it was a mistake. He listened without interrupting, though anger twisted inside him. He wanted to shout that she had no right to decide for him, but he held back. He could see she was already punishing herself enough. After a moment, he asked about the child. The word felt strange on his tongue. Child, father. These were things he had never allowed himself to imagine. Her shoulders tensed. She said the child was safe, living with people she trusted. She said the child was smart, quiet, and kind. She spoke with love shining through her pain. He noticed how her voice softened when she spoke about the child, and it stirred something deep inside him. He asked how old the child was. When she answered, he quickly calculated the years. The timing matched too well. His chest tightened, doubt mixed with fear. He wanted proof, yet he was terrified of it. She told him she did not come to force anything on him. She said she would accept it if he chose to walk away, but she could no longer live with the lie. The child was growing, asking questions. She knew the truth would come out one day, and she wanted him to hear it from her first. He stood and walked to the window, staring into the dark. The desert night stretched endlessly, calm and cold. He felt like a stranger in his own life. Everything he believed about his past now felt uncertain. He asked her why she came now, why after so many years. She said she was tired of running. She said fear had ruled her life for too long. And she said the child deserved to know where they came from, deserved the chance to be known by their father. Her voice shook, but her words were firm. He turned back to her, studying her face. He searched for lies, for signs of manipulation. But all he saw was exhaustion and truth. That scared him more than anger ever could. He told her he needed time. He said he could not forgive her so easily, could not accept everything in one night. She nodded quickly, saying she understood. She said she would stay as long as he allowed, even if it meant sleeping on the floor or leaving at sunrise. The thought of her leaving again stirred panic in him, though he did not admit it. He told her she could stay in the spare room. It was small and unused, but it was better than sending her back into the night. She thanked him again quietly. Gratitude filled her eyes, mixed with sadness. As she walked toward the room, he noticed how carefully she moved, as if afraid one wrong step would break what little mercy he had shown. Later, he lay awake on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. His mind replayed memories he thought he had buried. Her laughter, her silence, the night she disappeared. Now those memories were tangled with new ones that frightened him even more. He wondered if he could truly be a father. He had lived his life avoiding deep connections, afraid of loss. The idea of responsibility scared him. What if he failed? What if the child hated him for being absent? Before dawn, he rose quietly and stepped outside. The sky was just beginning to lighten. He breathed in the cold air, trying to steady himself. He had always believed his life was settled, predictable. Now it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. When the sun finally rose, she came out onto the porch, wrapped in a blanket. She looked surprised to see him there. For a moment, they stood side by side, watching the light spread across the land. She apologized again, softly. He did not respond right away. Then he said something that surprised them both. He said he was angry, yes. Hurt, yes. But he was also curious. Curious about the child. Curious about the truth. Curious about what kind of man he might have been if things were different. She looked at him with cautious hope. She said she would answer any question he had. No more secrets. They spent the morning talking. She told him about her struggles, about nights spent worrying, about moments of joy she never expected. She did not hide her mistakes. She spoke honestly, even when it made her look weak. He listened, slowly understanding that life had not given her easy choices. While he had chosen isolation, she had been fighting to survive. By midday, he felt drained but lighter, as if sharing the weight made it easier to carry. He told her he still did not know what he would decide. She said she would respect whatever choice he made. As the day passed, he realized something important. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting, and mercy did not mean surrender. It meant allowing space for truth to exist. That night, as they ate a simple meal in silence, he understood that part 2 of their story was not about answers yet. It was about facing the truth without running. Outside, the desert wind whispered softly. Inside, 2 wounded hearts began the slow, painful work of understanding, knowing that whatever came next would change their lives forever. The next morning arrived quietly, but the tension inside the house did not fade. He woke early again, though he had barely slept. His mind was full of questions, each one heavier than the last. When he stepped into the kitchen, he saw her already awake, cleaning the small counter with slow, careful movements, as if trying not to disturb anything, including him. She stopped when she noticed him. For a moment, they just looked at each other. There was no anger in her eyes now, only patience and worry. She asked if he wanted tea. He nodded, though he barely tasted it when she handed him the cup. After a while, he asked the question that had been pressing on him since the night before. He asked if he could see the child. Her hands trembled slightly as she set her cup down. She said she had hoped he would ask, but she was afraid of the answer. She said the child was staying 2 days away with a family friend who had helped raise them. Bringing the child here suddenly would be confusing and possibly frightening. She wanted to prepare them first. He understood, but disappointment still settled in his chest. The child felt real to him now, not just an idea. Waiting was hard. He asked what the child knew. She explained that the child knew there was a father, but only that he was someone from the past, someone important. She had never spoken badly of him. She said she wanted the child to form their own thoughts, not inherit pain. That surprised him. He had imagined that she might have filled the child's head with stories that made him look cruel. Hearing this softened something inside him. Later that day, they went into town together. It was her idea. She said hiding would only make things harder. He was unsure, but he agreed. As they walked through the streets, people greeted him as usual. Some noticed her and looked curious, but no one said anything. He felt strange being seen with her again, as if the past had stepped into the present without warning. He watched how she carried herself, quiet, respectful, never demanding attention. It reminded him of why he had admired her before. They stopped at a small store. Inside, she picked up a few basic items and paid with carefully saved money. He noticed how she counted every bill, how careful she was. When she turned away, he added more items to the counter and paid without a word. Outside, she tried to refuse, but he told her it was fine. Not kindness, he said, just fairness. She nodded, accepting without argument. That evening, as the sun lowered, he finally asked her to tell him everything from the beginning. Not just the parts she thought were safe. Everything. They sat on the porch, the sky painted with soft colors. She took a deep breath and began. She spoke about the time when she learned the truth, about the fear that came with it, about voices around her telling her that staying would bring trouble to everyone involved. She said she had been young, scared, and unprepared to fight so many pressures at once. She admitted she had made mistakes. She said she should have trusted him more, should have given him the chance to stand beside her. But fear had made her choose distance over honesty. As she spoke, he felt anger rise again, but it was slower now, less sharp. He could see how alone she had been. He realized that while he had chosen isolation after she left, she had never had that choice. When she finished, silence fell between them. He stared out at the land, thinking. Finally, he said something he had not expected to say. He said he wished she had trusted him, but he could also see that fear had stolen her courage. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness this time, but relief. Being understood, even a little, meant everything to her. Over the next few days, a routine formed. They cooked simple meals together. They worked around the house. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they sat in silence, which now felt less heavy. He began to ask questions about the child more often. Small questions at first: favorite food, habits, laugh. Each answer made the child feel more real, more present in his life. At night, he struggled. Doubt returned when the house was quiet. He wondered if he was being foolish. What if the truth was more complicated than she said? What if hope only led to more pain? One night, unable to sleep, he walked into the spare room. She was awake, sitting on the bed, holding a small, worn object in her hands. When she saw him, she quickly tried to hide it. He asked what it was. She hesitated, then handed it to him. It was a small bracelet, old and faded. She said it belonged to the child. She said the child never took it off because she had told them it was a reminder of their father, even though they had never met him. His throat tightened. He held the bracelet carefully as if it might break. In that moment, something changed inside him. This was no longer just about forgiveness between two adults. A child was waiting, hoping, without even knowing it. The next morning, he made a decision. He told her he wanted to meet the child. Not someday, soon. Her face filled with emotion. She nodded quickly, promising she would prepare the child gently. She said it would take a little time, but she would make the arrangements. As the days passed, he began to imagine the meeting. He imagined awkward silence, difficult questions, and emotions he might not know how to handle. But alongside the fear, something else grew: purpose. For the first time in years, he thought about the future not as an empty road, but as something uncertain and alive. By the end of part 3 of their story, forgiveness had not yet arrived. Trust was still fragile, but something important had happened. He was no longer standing still, trapped by old wounds. He was moving forward step by step, toward a truth that scared him, and toward a child who might one day call him father. The days that followed felt heavier than any before. The decision had been made, but carrying it was not easy. Knowing he would soon meet the child changed the way he saw everything. The house no longer felt empty, yet it did not feel peaceful either. It felt like a place waiting for something important to happen. She spent much of her time preparing. She wrote messages, made careful calls, and planned the journey. Every step was slow and thoughtful. She wanted to protect the child's heart as much as possible. He watched her quietly, noticing how serious she was about doing things the right way. One evening, he asked what she had told the child so far. She said she had explained that the past was coming back, and that someone important wanted to meet them. She said the child had listened carefully and asked many questions. Some were simple, some were hard. She answered each one honestly, without fear this time. He felt nervous hearing this. He imagined a small face filled with curiosity and uncertainty. He wondered what the child expected from him. A hero, a stranger, someone who had failed before even arriving. That night he walked through his house, looking at it with new eyes. He noticed how bare the walls were, how quiet the rooms felt. He realized he had built a life that only fit one person. Now he wondered if it could make space for more. The next morning she told him the plans were set. They would travel in 2 days. The child would meet him in a safe, familiar place first. No pressure, no big moments. Just a meeting. His chest tightened. 2 days felt too soon and too far away at the same time. As they prepared, memories returned without warning. He remembered his own childhood, the lessons he learned, the things he wished had been different. He asked himself if he could give better than what he had received. He was afraid the answer might be no. She noticed his silence and did not push him. Instead, she spoke gently, reminding him that perfection was not needed. Presence mattered more than anything else. Her words stayed with him. On the day before they were to leave, a neighbor stopped by. The man exchanged a few words, then watched the woman with curiosity. After the neighbor left, he asked quietly if people would talk. She said maybe, but she no longer cared. Fear had already taken too much from her life. Her courage surprised him. Once, fear had driven her away. Now it no longer ruled her. He wondered if meeting the child had given her that strength, or if time had simply taught her what truly mattered. That evening, as the sun set, doubt returned to him strongly. He told her he was scared of doing more harm than good. He said the child had lived a stable life without him. He asked if his arrival would only confuse things. She listened carefully. Then she said something that stayed with him. She said absence also leaves a mark, even if it is quiet. She said the child deserved the truth, not a perfect story. Later that night, he dreamed. He dreamed of walking across open land, calling out, but no one answered. Then he heard footsteps behind him. When he turned, the dream faded before he could see the face. He woke before sunrise, heart racing. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long time, steadying himself. Fear was still there, but so was something else. Resolve. The journey began early. They drove for hours, the road stretching endlessly ahead. At first, neither spoke much. The landscape changed slowly, and with each mile his thoughts grew louder. She eventually broke the silence, pointing out familiar places, sharing small stories from her travels. Her voice helped calm him. He realized she was nervous too, though she hid it better. When they arrived near the meeting place, they stopped at a small place to rest. She asked him again if he was ready. He nodded, though his hands shook slightly. They waited. Time moved slowly. Every sound made his heart jump. Then finally he saw them approaching. The child walked beside the woman who had cared for them for years. Small steps, curious eyes. Calm but cautious. His breath caught. Everything around him faded. The child stopped a few steps away, looking up at him. There was no fear, only curiosity. The child's eyes searched his face carefully, as if trying to match him to a picture in their mind. She introduced him simply, no titles, no expectations. He crouched slightly to be closer to eye level. His voice felt strange when he spoke, but he kept it gentle. He said hello. He said his name. The child nodded slowly. After a moment, the child spoke, asking if he was real. The question broke something open inside him. He said yes. He said he was real and he was here. There was a long pause, then the child smiled just a little. They did not rush anything. They talked about simple things. The road, the sky, a small bird nearby. Slowly the tension eased. She watched quietly, tears in her eyes, but she did not interrupt. This moment was not hers to control. As time passed, the child grew more comfortable. Questions came more easily. Where did he live? What did he do? Did he like fixing things? He answered honestly, keeping his words simple. He did not promise anything he could not keep. He did not pretend to be someone he was not. At one point, the child reached into their pocket and pulled out the bracelet. He recognized it immediately. His throat tightened again. The child said it was special. He nodded, unable to speak. When it was time to leave, the child hugged him briefly, then stepped back. The hug was quick, unsure, but real. As they walked away, he felt both full and empty. The meeting had been gentle, but its weight was enormous. On the drive back, silence returned, but it felt different now. He was no longer wondering if the child existed. He knew. That night, he barely slept. His mind replayed every moment, every word. He felt joy, fear, and responsibility all at once. In part 4 of their story, everything shifted. The question was no longer whether the past could be forgiven. The question was whether he was ready to build something new, knowing there would be no turning back. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, he was not walking it alone. The morning after the meeting felt different from all the others. The world looked the same, yet something inside him had changed forever. He woke up with the memory of the child's small smile still fresh in his mind. It stayed with him like a quiet light, warming a part of his heart that had been cold for years. They returned to his house later that day. The drive was long, but it did not feel empty. Even silence carried meaning now. When they arrived, he opened the door and paused, suddenly seeing the house not as a place of escape, but as a place that could grow. She noticed the pause and asked if he was okay. He nodded slowly. He said he was thinking about how life had a way of returning what we believed was lost. She smiled softly, understanding more than he had said. That evening, they sat at the table with a simple meal. He surprised her by asking about plans for the future. Not in a distant way, but in a careful, serious tone. He asked where the child would live. He asked what support was needed. The questions came slowly, but they were real. She answered honestly. She said she did not expect him to change everything overnight. She only wanted him to be present, to be honest, and to take each step with care. She said healing did not come from big promises, but from steady actions. He agreed. He said he could not fix the past, but he could choose what kind of man he would be moving forward. Saying it out loud made it feel real. In the days that followed, small changes began to appear. He cleared out the spare room, not in a hurry but with thought. He fixed a broken window. He added light where there had been shadows. Each task felt like a quiet promise. She helped when he allowed it, never pushing. Sometimes they worked in silence, and sometimes they talked about the past, not with anger anymore, but with honesty. They spoke about mistakes without blaming, about fear without shame. One afternoon, he asked her if she regretted coming back. She thought for a moment, then said no. She said fear had once controlled her life, but truth had set her free. No matter what happened next, she would not carry secrets anymore. He respected that. He realized forgiveness did not mean erasing pain. It meant allowing growth to happen despite it. Soon, messages and calls became part of their routine. He spoke with the child more often, sometimes just a few words, sometimes longer conversations. At first, he listened more than he spoke. He wanted to understand, not rush. The child asked him questions about his work, about the desert, about simple things. He answered patiently. Each conversation built trust, slowly and naturally. One day, the child asked if they could visit again. The question caught him off guard. His heart raced, but he said yes. He said they could plan it together. When the visit finally happened, it felt less frightening than before. The child walked into the house with more confidence, exploring carefully. He watched closely, ready to guide but not control. They spent the day doing ordinary things, fixing a small tool, walking outside, sharing a meal. There were no grand moments, but there was warmth. That evening, as the sun went down, the child sat beside him on the porch. After a long silence, the child leaned slightly against his arm. The gesture was small, but it carried more meaning than words ever could. He did not move. He simply stayed. Later, when the child was asleep, he stood outside alone, looking at the stars. He thought about the man he used to be, the one who believed his life was finished. He almost laughed at the thought. She joined him quietly. They stood side by side, not as strangers from the past, but as two people who had survived it. He thanked her then, not for returning, but for telling the truth. She nodded, eyes filled with emotion, but she did not cry. She had done enough of that in silence. Over time, the community noticed changes. He was no longer the distant man who kept to himself. He smiled more. He spoke with warmth. People did not know the full story, but they could see its effect. Life did not become perfect. There were still hard conversations, moments of doubt, and slow days. But there was also laughter, learning, and connection. One evening, as they sat together, the child looked at him and asked a simple question. Could they call him Dad? The word settled into his heart gently, not as a demand, but as a gift. His voice shook when he answered yes. In that moment, he understood mercy. It was not weakness. It was strength. It was choosing love over pride, truth over fear. Their story did not end with a perfect ending. It continued, growing day by day, shaped by patience and honesty. The man who once lived in silence now lived with purpose. The woman who once ran from fear now stood in truth. And the child who waited quietly had found a place to belong. Under the wide desert sky, 3 lives moved forward together, not because the past was forgotten, but because it was finally forgiven.